Welcome to Revenge Report. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Let's dive in. Dr. Lena Calloway, a 43-year-old trauma surgeon recently returned from a Doctors Without Borders mission, enters the imposing, cold confines of her late grandfather's mansion. The place is a symbol of wealth and tradition, a far cry from her own minimalist life shaped by years of service in the field. Her family, however, looks nothing like the humble legacy of a rancher that Lena remembers. They are draped in luxury, sipping cocktails, and murmuring behind gold-rimmed glasses, every single one of them with a smile that feels more like a sneer. Lena feels the eyes on her, noting their disapproval. Her cousin Elise, always the queen of the family, glances at her with a mocking, haughty grin. "The bleeding heart medic," she says loudly, for all to hear. "It's so cute when you come back from saving the world. Though I'm not sure your charity work really pays off." Lena's hair, wild from her long travels, is the least of the issue. Her medical attire and the deep exhaustion etched into her face are an open invitation for the mockery that follows her wherever she goes. Still, she holds her ground. It's nothing she hasn't endured before. The family lawyer, Mr. Hanlon, an efficient, cold figure, begins reading the will, and Lena tunes in. A hush falls over the room as he recites the terms: the mansion, the wealth, the prized ranch, and the legacy. All of it passes to Elise and to Lena's parents. Lena feels a sting of humiliation, but she stays quiet. The estate was never meant for someone like her. The taunts from her family seem to intensify as Elise speaks again, this time louder. "Even Granddad knew charity work doesn't pay off." Then, as if to add insult to injury, Hanlon pauses. "One final stipulation." The room leans in, and Lena can feel all eyes shift toward her. "A sealed envelope," he says. "This must be read only in the presence of Dr. Lena Calloway." The weight of that moment falls on Lena like a heavy silence. The family gasps, murmurs ripple through the room as she steps forward, every pair of eyes on her, and the air is thick with confusion, anticipation, and something else, something almost menacing. Her heartbeat quickens, but she keeps her composure, ready to face whatever comes next. The room falls unnervingly silent as Mr. Hanlon breaks the seal of the envelope and begins to read. His voice is calm, but the words feel like thunder. "To my dear granddaughter, Lena Calloway," he begins, and for a moment, Lena feels the weight of her grandfather's voice, as though he's speaking directly to her. The words that follow are carefully considered, yet they seem to unravel the very fabric of the room. Her grandfather's letter declares her the true heir to the legacy ranch, naming her sole inheritor. He praises her, humility, honor, and steadfastness, qualities he'd always admired. He writes of how she quietly dedicated her life to saving others, not for recognition, but because it was the right thing to do. Her commitment, he claims, was the reason he knew she was the one who would preserve the ranch and its legacy. The shock in the room is palpable. Elise's eyes widen in disbelief, her mouth hanging open as if she'd forgotten how to speak. The room, silent for a beat, erupted into a chorus of gasps, murmurs, and questions. "What is this?" Elise finally shouts, her voice high with panic. "This is a fake. It has to be. Granddad would never have done this." Her protest is immediate, but it doesn't break Lena's calm. She stands motionless, feeling her chest tighten, yet knowing she cannot let this moment break her. Her medical training, honed in the chaos of operating rooms and war zones, grounds her. She doesn't let the noise or the chaos affect her. "Mr. Hanlon," Lena says, breaking the rising storm of family disbelief. "Is this legal?" Hanlon, who has remained quiet up until now, flips through the pages of the letter and looks up. "I've reviewed the trust amendment, Dr. Calloway," he says, his voice steady. "It's legal, ironclad. Your grandfather made it very clear. This letter supersedes any previous terms. You are the rightful heir." A ripple of shock passes through the room as Lena's family stares at her, some with wide eyes, others with clenched jaws. Elise's hands tremble, her perfectly manicured fingers unable to grip the wine glass in her hand. Lena doesn't gloat. She doesn't smile in triumph. Her gaze drifts momentarily to the floor, where, as a child, she'd sat on her grandfather's knee in the barn, listening to stories of the land, of the animals, and of a time when things were simpler. She remembers tending to injured horses with him in the quiet stillness of the barn, where the world felt safe and full of purpose. This was his legacy, and she would be the one to carry it forward. not because it was hers by right, but because it was hers by heart. I'm not interested in gloating, Lena finally says, her voice soft but firm. This land, this ranch, it's not about proving a point. It's about honoring what my grandfather built. And that's what I intend to do. The room stays quiet for a long moment. Elise's lips tremble, but she says nothing. The others exchange glances, and some begin to whisper, still unable to fully process the turn of events. Lena remains calm. She knew this moment would come. She just never expected it to unfold like this. With her standing as the last heir to a ranch she never imagined could be hers. Her calm presence, however, is a stark contrast to the chaos that churns in the hearts of her family. Later that evening, as the mansion grows quieter, Lena retreats to the small guest room where she's been staying. The weight of the will's revelation still lingers in her mind, but the family's reaction churns in her chest. Elise's protests, her mother's discomfort, her father's silence. They all point to the same thing. Lena is now an outsider, but the silence of the house is interrupted by the low hum of voices rising through the walls. Curious and increasingly unsettled, Lena steps out into the hallway, drawn by a muffled conversation. She moves cautiously toward the open door of the study, where she can hear the voices of Elise, her parents, and a familiar face, Patrick, the family lawyer who has been loyal to their side for years. They don't know she's standing just beyond the threshold, listening. I'm telling you, this isn't over. Elise's voice is sharp, almost frantic. We can't just let this go. She's not fit to manage the ranch. She's unbalanced. Lena leans in closer, her heartbeat quickening as she catches the next part of the conversation. Her years in the field, the trauma, this could be a problem. Patrick agrees, his voice calm, like he's been down this road before. We can claim mental instability. It's the perfect angle. She's been away from her family for years, dealing with God knows what. That's a huge red flag. Lena feels a knot tighten in her stomach. Her mind flashes back to the horrors she's seen. Bombings, torn bodies, the sound of desperate cries in the refugee camps. She swallows hard, trying to push the images away, but they linger. There's footage, Elise continues, her voice now triumphant. Photos from some of her field operations, things that will make anyone question her ability to run a ranch. We can leak those. A few videos of her working in crisis zones, making it seem like it's all taking a toll on her. It'll be easy. She won't even know what hit her. Lena's mind races, but she doesn't react. She remains completely still, her face an impassive mask as the words of her family settle like dust in her mind. They plan to exploit her trauma, her work, her service, and twist it into something that discredits her, that makes her unfit. It's as if they believe she can't be both the person who saved lives in war zones and capable of managing the legacy her grandfather entrusted her with. They don't see her, not at all. Elise, this could work, Patrick continues. We'll file for injunctions, call her stability into question. If we can get a judge to believe this— Not just a judge, Elise interrupts, her voice dripping with malicious glee. We'll need media attention too. They'll eat this up. I'll make sure her name is dragged through the mud. She's been too quiet for too long. It's time everyone knows what kind of person she really is. Lena's fists clench at her sides. The words strike deep. She'd been prepared for their resistance. But this strategy, it's personal. This isn't just about the ranch. It's about power, control. And Lena knows she can't fight fire with fire. She doesn't have the luxury of sinking to their level. For a long moment, Lena simply stands there in silence, listening. But her mind has already begun its work, like a surgeon preparing for an operation. Her hand rests gently on the doorframe, and her thoughts shift to the countless operations she performed in refugee camps, the 12 surgeries she completed in a single day, on the dirt floor of a tent, under the weight of exhaustion. Her mind sharpens again, cutting through the chaos of her family's plotting. She silently vows to fight, not with anger or retaliation, but with proof, with calm precision. She won't let their lies erode her legacy. She'll turn their words back on them. Lena waits, listening to the rest of the conversation, but she's already made up her mind. This battle won't be won with more noise. It'll be won with facts. Cold, hard facts. Lena's heart races as she walks the length of the hallway, her mind still buzzing from the conversation she overheard in the study. The sense of betrayal sits heavy in her chest, but there's a quiet steadiness in the way her feet move, as if some deep-rooted instinct knows the right course. She steps into her grandfather's study, the place where he once sat, reading, planning, creating a legacy. It smells of cedar wood, old books, and memories, fragments of her childhood. Her fingers trail along the worn leather of the desk, memories of his calloused hands guiding her through the basics of ranch life. The steady pulse of this room, the space where her grandfather once decided the fate of his land, grounds her now, a sanctuary in the midst of chaos. She walks to the bookshelves, scanning the titles, but it's the small drawer in the far corner that calls to her. She pulls it open with steady hands, and there, hidden beneath a stack of papers, lies a yellowed envelope. No name, no markings. Just the faint imprint of something important, something meant to stay concealed. Lena's breath catches as she slips it out, her fingers trembling slightly. She sits down in his old leather chair, the weight of the moment sinking in. The letter inside is handwritten, the ink faded but legible. She begins to read, each word binding her to the past. The letter is from her grandfather, written with the same careful precision that had always marked his character. The message is not just a note, it's a confession. Her grandfather knew everything. How Elise had manipulated their communications, how calls to the ranch had been intercepted, how her letters had been deliberately delayed or blocked. It's all there, laid out in black and white. The sabotage, the quiet but constant attempt to sever Lena's connection to her family and to the ranch. The letter concludes with a chilling final clause. Any party found guilty of interference with my granddaughter's inheritance will forfeit all rights to the estate. It's clear now, this was not just a measure of protection. It was a deliberate act to shield Lena from the very people who were trying to manipulate her destiny. In the same drawer, tucked beneath the letter, Lena finds a USB drive. Her hand hovers over it before she slips it into her laptop. The files open, revealing a series of documents, surveillance footage, notarized affidavits, call logs. Lena's stomach churns as she watches videos of her grandfather's interactions with Elise and her parents, all recorded secretly to preserve the truth. It's a quiet battle he fought alone, without her knowledge, to protect her from the people who should have supported her. Her pulse quickens as she reads through the call logs, calls Lena never knew about, calls from her grandfather to her parents, to Elise, even to the family lawyer, warning them against their schemes. Each piece of evidence fits together like a jigsaw puzzle, revealing the scope of the manipulation she had been too blind to see. She exhales slowly, the weight of the moment settling in. This isn't just about the ranch anymore. It's about restoring the integrity of the legacy her grandfather entrusted to her, and holding her family accountable for what they've done. Lena leans back in the chair, breathing in the scent of cedar and wood smoke, and for the first time in weeks, a sense of calm settles over her. The fight ahead is not one she asked for, but it's one she will win. She won't fight with more noise. She won't lower herself to their level. Instead, she will fight with precision, with strategy, and with the proof of her grandfather's trust. The legacy of the ranch isn't just about land. It's about truth, honor, and what it means to preserve something beyond oneself. Lena stands and walks toward the window, looking out over the sprawling landscape, her thoughts steady. This fight is just beginning, and she's ready. The morning after discovering the hidden evidence, Lena begins her task with calm precision. She knows the fight ahead will require every ounce of methodical focus she's ever applied in an operating room. The stakes are high, and this isn't a battle she can afford to lose. She sits at her desk, surrounded by the carefully collected evidence, copies of her grandfather's handwritten letter, the USB drive with surveillance footage, notarized affidavits, and the call logs that prove her family's manipulation. Lena arranges everything neatly, timestamps and file names in order, creating secure backups of the digital files to prevent any chance of tampering. Her fingers dance across the keyboard as she logs each piece of evidence, ensuring there's no room for doubt in her approach. Her phone buzzes with a notification. She glances at it. Elise Calloway has posted a video. Curious, Lena opens it. Her cousin Elise, ever the social media influencer, stands in front of a pristine backdrop, probably her latest boutique office, and mocks Lena in a slick, self-assured tone. "Can you believe my cousin, the doctor?" Elise says, flashing a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. "Apparently, she's got this ranch now. Guess it's a little too much responsibility for someone who spends most of their time in blood-soaked hospitals, right?" She laughs, an exaggerated sound, before launching into a performance of distaste. "Oh, but don't worry. I'm sure the animals will be fine. Lena's real expertise is in saving lives, not running a business. Lena lets out a soft sigh, the kind that holds a blend of frustration and quiet resolve. Elise doesn't know it yet, but Lena's already filed an injunction to freeze her cousin's access to any of the estate's assets. The video, clearly meant to embarrass and discredit her, will soon be a moot point in the face of the evidence she holds. Nice try, Elise, Lena mutters, but there's no trace of anger in her voice. Anger won't help her now. She turns her attention back to the documents in front of her. This is where she'll fight. Quietly, strategically, with proof. Lena gathers the files, consolidates her findings, and heads out of her temporary office, walking toward the trust office where Mr. Hanlon waits. The lawyer will handle the paperwork, but Lena knows what comes next. She'll let facts speak louder than words. At the office, Lena slides the neatly organized files across the table to Mr. Hanlon, whose eyes widen slightly at the weight of the evidence. These, she says, her voice steady, will clear up any questions about my grandfather's intentions. I want you to take these to the trustee and file them immediately. We don't have time to waste. Hanlon nods, clearly impressed by her focus. Understood. I'll make sure everything is filed and executed right away. The moment she leaves his office, she feels the weight of the world slip off her shoulders just a little. But that doesn't last long. Minutes later, as Lena makes her way back to the ranch, she receives an alert. Her parents are trying to serve her with a guardianship petition, citing mental instability due to her work in the field. A slight, humorless smile curves her lips as she reads the message. She expected this. She pulls over, parks her car at the edge of the ranch, and immediately drafts a response. She attaches her evidence of defamation and the document tampering she uncovered. The guardianship petition is nothing more than a last-ditch effort to wrest control of the ranch from her. But Lena won't be swayed by their desperation. The family's move only reinforces what she already knows. This isn't just about land, money, or legacy, it's about power, and Lena is no longer willing to let them have it. When she sends the email, she doesn't feel a surge of triumph. No, she feels a calm sense of closure. Her response isn't based on emotion, it's based on facts. Later that afternoon, the trustee's office confirms that the forfeiture clause is in motion. The wheels are turning, and Lena remains as still as the quiet land she's about to inherit. Lena takes one last glance at her phone, where Elise's video mocks her once more. But Lena doesn't rise to the bait. She has no need to. Her actions will speak louder than anything else. She walks back into the stillness of the ranch, feeling more centered than ever. This fight is far from over, but Lena knows exactly how she'll win. And it won't be through anger or frustration. It will be through methodical precision, as sharp and calculated as any scalpel in her medical bag. The courtroom is suffocating. The walls seem to press in on Lena as she sits at the defendant's table, her gaze steady and her hands clasped together. The low hum of murmured conversations in the courtroom fades as the judge enters, and all attention shifts to the front. Lena can feel the weight of her family's scrutiny, the underlying tension that thickens the air. On the opposite side, her family's lawyer, a polished man with sharp features, stands confidently. His opening remarks are delivered with the precision of someone who's used to the courtroom spotlight. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he begins, his voice smooth, "we are here today because Dr. Lena Calloway is unfit to manage the ranch and the estate left to her. The evidence will show that the woman who claims to be the heir is suffering from severe mental instability, brought on by her years of exposure to traumatic events." Lena's heart doesn't race. She remains calm, her medical instincts grounding her. She knows this move, painting her as emotionally unbalanced, was coming. The lawyer's voice continues, growing louder with each word. "We have videos, we have photos, we have witnesses. A person who has spent so much time in crisis zones cannot possibly be entrusted with such a valuable estate. She's lost touch with reality. We have footage of Dr. Calloway in the field, looking unstable, distracted. This, Your Honor, is not the behavior of someone capable of running a ranch or caring for such a legacy." Lena watches the jury, studying their reactions. Some are skeptical, others are nodding. Her family's lawyer plays his hand well, manipulating the footage to fit his narrative, framing Lena's years of service as a disqualifier, not an honor. The lawyer calls for the footage to be shown, a series of clips from her time in the field, some from humanitarian crises, others from moments that were far too raw for anyone outside of those situations to truly understand. The video cuts to Lena performing surgery in a makeshift operating room, covered in blood, her face grim but focused. The footage looks dramatic, distorted by the editing to emphasize her exhaustion. She's tired, she's human, but Lena has seen far worse. The footage ends, and Lena doesn't flinch. The lawyer turns to the jury, offering a look of triumph. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the reality of Dr. Lena Calloway. But Lena's calm remains unshaken. It's not her first time facing an attack under pressure. She stands when called to speak, her voice quiet but confident. Your Honor, she begins, addressing the court with composure. I am a trauma surgeon. I've spent years working in the worst possible conditions, saving lives where others might have given up. Yes, I've seen things that would make most people break, but I'm still here, and I am still capable. I don't need to justify my work to you, but I will. Lena gestures to the screen, where the footage of her in the field still hangs in the air. Yes, that's me, the woman who has performed surgeries in dirt floor tents, who's treated victims of bombings, refugees, and the sick. But what that footage doesn't show you is the calm that I bring to chaos. What it doesn't show is the clarity of thought that allowed me to make split-second decisions in the face of terror. That's what I've done my entire life. She pauses, allowing her words to sink in. She doesn't look at her family. Instead, she looks straight ahead, her voice steady. What it also doesn't show you is the trust that my patients placed in me when they had nothing else, when I was the only person who could help them. My work has shaped who I am, and my actions have always been driven by a sense of duty, not by the expectations of others. The courtroom is silent. Even Elise, who had been so sure of her victory, falters, her hands trembling slightly in her lap. Lena has turned the tables with nothing more than the truth. Lena turns back to the lawyer and speaks again, addressing the court. As for the claim that I am unfit to manage the ranch, let me remind you that I was raised on that land. I know it. I've worked with my grandfather on it for years, learning every inch of it. The ranch is more than a business to me. It's my heritage, my connection to the past. I won't let it go without a fight. Lena's voice rises slightly, not in anger, but in conviction. She turns to her family. And if you want to challenge me, you will have to face the truth. The truth of what's been happening behind closed doors. The truth of what you've done to keep me from this legacy. The lawyer, visibly rattled, calls for a break, but the damage has been done. Lena's calm demeanor and the quiet strength behind her words have planted seeds of doubt in the minds of those who are prepared to use her trauma against her. As the court adjourns for the day, Lena sits back in her chair. She doesn't feel triumph, she feels steady, the way she does after a long, hard surgery. The first step has been taken. The next day, her family's lawyer collapses under the weight of the evidence she's prepared. Elise, under the pressure, cracks. She stands in front of the court and confesses her actions, admitting she sabotaged Lena's chances to earn the family's love and recognition. The judge rules in Lena's favor, upholding the forfeiture clause in her grandfather's will. All claims against Lena's inheritance are dissolved. As Lena leaves the courtroom, the flashes of cameras break the silence. Reporters shouting questions. She doesn't respond. I came to honor my grandfather's legacy, she says simply, walking past the cameras. Lena sits in the quiet of her grandfather's ranch, feeling a sense of stillness in the air. The dust motes float lazily in the late afternoon light, and the land outside stretches endlessly, as familiar as her own heartbeat. Despite the victory in court, something inside her feels unsettled. Her hands, still tightly gripping the edges of the chair, tremble slightly. It's not victory she's thinking of right now. It's the brokenness she saw in Elise's confession. The admission that she had sabotaged Lena not out of malice alone, but out of a desperate need for love and recognition. A twisted search for validation in a family that had never quite seen her. The words echo in her mind, but they feel disconnected from the woman she's known. I just wanted to be loved, to earn something. Lena's heart aches at the thought, but she quickly shuts it down. She can't afford to feel pity. Not for Elise, not for anyone. This isn't about pity, it's about moving forward. Lena opens the field journal she carried with her throughout her medical deployments. The pages are filled with sketches of crumbling walls, the bloodstains from surgeries performed in the mud, and words that encapsulate the chaos of a world where lives hang in the balance. But today, she doesn't flip through those pages for the weight of their memories. Instead, she begins to sketch again. But this time, it's different. Lena draws the outline of the land, the open fields of the ranch, dotted with trees, winding roads, the barns, and the farmhouse. But in the center of the page, she draws something new: a retreat center, a place for healing, a trauma recovery center for first responders and veterans who, like her, have seen too much of the world's darkness to find peace without help. As the pencil glides across the paper, Lena feels the warmth of the ranch wrap around her, like her grandfather is sitting beside her again, guiding her with his quiet wisdom. She smiles faintly, the first smile in a while that feels genuine, not forced. Her grandfather never saw the ranch as just a piece of land. He saw it as a place of sanctuary, a place to slow down and reconnect with what truly mattered. Not revenge, she writes at the bottom of the page, her handwriting firm but simple. Rebuilding. She knows this is her purpose now, not to cling to the bitterness of the past, but to forge a future that brings real healing, not just for herself, but for others who have felt the same weight she has. Her thoughts drift, and the headlines swirl around her head, but she doesn't focus on them. Her name, her past, the taunts from Elise, none of that matters anymore. The legacy of the ranch isn't defined by her family's expectations. It's defined by what she chooses to build here. Her phone buzzes, but she ignores it. She doesn't need to hear her parents' voices again. Not now. Not when she's beginning to see the path ahead clearly for the first time in weeks. Instead, Lena rises from her chair and walks outside, her boots crunching against the gravel. The fields are golden in the late afternoon sun, the distant mountains casting long shadows. She breathes deeply, taking in the scent of hay and the soft hum of life around her. For the first time in a long time, she feels connected, not to her family's turmoil, but to something deeper. Lena's mind begins to plan. A trauma recovery retreat, a space for people like her, first responders, veterans, people who have given too much and need to reclaim their lives. She sketches out more ideas on paper: spaces for quiet reflection, group therapy areas, outdoor healing circles. The layout of the land begins to take shape in her mind, and she knows this is where she belongs, not just as an heir to a ranch, but as a steward of its future. Lena pauses, standing at the edge of the property, looking out across the vast expanse. The legacy of her grandfather is not one she will carry in isolation. It's one she will share with the world. The ranch is quiet on the morning Elise arrives, the kind of quiet that feels like the calm before a storm, or perhaps the silence after one. Lena stands in the barn, adjusting the straps on an old harness, her thoughts scattered, but centered on the task at hand. The heavy smell of hay and wood fills the air, grounding her in this place she has fought so hard to protect. And then she hears it, an unexpected sound, the crunch of gravel underfoot. She looks up, squinting against the bright morning sun. Elise stands at the edge of the barn, her appearance strikingly different from the confident, polished woman Lena remembers. No entourage, no makeup, just a plain shirt and jeans, her posture slightly hunched, as though she's unsure of her place here. Lena doesn't say anything at first. She simply watches Elise, waiting to see if she'll speak. After a long pause, Elise steps forward, her voice hesitant but steady. I came to help, she says, almost as if testing the words as they leave her mouth. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want to do something real. Lena stays quiet for a moment longer, her gaze steady. It's not that she's angry or even surprised. She's seen the brokenness in Elise's eyes after the courtroom battle, the way her family has splintered and crumbled. But forgiveness? That's something different. Something she's not sure she's ready to offer. Finally, Lena nods, her voice calm, but laced with a guarded curiosity. Help? She repeats, not as a question, but as a simple acknowledgement. Elise shifts, clearly uncomfortable but resolute. Yes, she says, voice barely above a whisper. I've been thinking a lot about what I've done and about how much I hurt you, and I know I can't make up for that, but I can help with the new program, if you'll let me. Lena lets the silence stretch between them, letting the words sink in. The ranch has always been a place for healing, for others, but perhaps it's time to start allowing that healing to extend to the broken parts of her own family. All right, Lena says slowly, breaking the tension. You can help, but it won't be easy. She gestures toward the pile of firewood stacked outside. Start by hauling that up to the cabin. Afterward, we'll see what else you can handle. Elise nods, a faint but sincere smile pulling at her lips, and immediately moves toward the wood. There's no protest, no attempt to explain herself further. She simply picks up the heavy logs, and Lena watches for a moment, her expression unreadable. For the next few weeks, Elise continues to show up. Each time, she's quieter than before, always there with a new task to take on, whether it's coiling hoses, loading firewood, or helping sort through old ranch equipment. She never asks for acknowledgement, she just works. Lena notices the subtle shift. Elise listens more than she speaks. She learns the names of the ranch hands, the different types of knots used in the barn, the rhythms of life on the ranch, things she had never cared to know before. And Lena? She watches, not with open arms, but with cautious eyes. She doesn't forgive yet, not fully. She isn't sure she's ready, but she recognizes something important in Elise's actions, a willingness to change, a motion toward humility that she hadn't seen before. The ranch is still a place of healing, but for the first time in a long while, it feels like something else too, a place where bridges, however fragile, can start to be rebuilt. One evening, after a long day of work, Lena finds Elise sitting by the fire pit, quietly watching the embers glow. Lena walks over and sits beside her, the warmth of the fire soft against the evening chill. "You're different," Lena says simply, her voice almost an afterthought. "But not in a way I expected." Elise glances over at her, her expression serious but not defensive. "I'm trying," she says quietly, "trying to be better." Lena nods slowly. She's seen the effort, seen it in the small things. Elise's humility, her willingness to help without expecting anything in return. It's not forgiveness yet, not in the way Lena thinks of it, but it's something that feels, for the first time, like progress. Lena doesn't respond right away. Instead, she looks into the fire, letting the crackling embers fill the silence. Finally, she speaks, but it's not forgiveness she offers, just the space for something to grow. "Keep working," she says softly, "and maybe we'll see." And in that moment, Lena doesn't know what will come next. She doesn't know if there's a way back for Elise or if they can rebuild the trust they once had. But she does know this. The first step toward anything, toward healing or redemption, is to simply start. The morning air is crisp as Lena watches the first few trucks pull into the ranch, carrying the veterans and teenagers who will soon become part of the ranch's new mission. The trauma recovery camp is finally taking shape. The grassy expanse, once just a stretch of land that Lena inherited, now hums with the energy of purpose. There are 10 veterans, some gruff and silent, others quietly carrying stories that Lena knows they'll be sharing for the first time in years. Alongside them, 8 teenagers from local shelters, a group that has weathered their own storms of hardship and loss. Together, they are here to build, to share, to heal. Lena stands by the barn, overseeing the setup with a sense of quiet anticipation. The familiar scent of hay and dirt fills the air, but today, it smells like something more, a new beginning. She watches as the teens and veterans start unloading supplies, organizing tents, and preparing the grounds for the activities they'll soon dive into. As the camp comes to life, Lena's gaze lingers on Elise, who's standing off to the side, helping organize the firewood. She moves with quiet diligence, her hands stained with the labor she's committed to over the past weeks. There's no fanfare, no applause, just a steady dedication to contributing, without expecting anything in return. Lena approaches her slowly, taking in the subtle shifts in Elise's demeanor. No longer the spoiled, calculating woman who once ruled the family dynamics, but someone trying to prove something entirely different now. "You're not taking a break?" Lena asks, her voice quiet but direct. Elise looks up, wiping sweat from her forehead, and shakes her head. "I'm here to help. If that means working without stopping, so be it." Lena watches her for a moment, then nods. There's no sarcasm, no judgment in her tone, just the recognition that Elise has begun to change. The work, the effort, it's all part of something deeper, something more personal than redemption or appeasing Lena. As the day moves on, Lena finds herself watching the interactions between the veterans and the teens. It's slow at first, the silence between them filled with uncertainty and pain. But as they work together to build the shelters and prepare the campfire area, something shifts. The veterans share stories, some about their military service, others about the everyday battles they've faced since they returned home. The teenagers listen, eager for connection, understanding. One of the veterans, a man with a weathered face and deep-set eyes, bends down beside an anxious teen trying to start a fire with flint. The teen's hands shake, the spark sputters out, and he pulls back in frustration. The veteran doesn't speak immediately. Instead, he gently adjusts the teen's grip, guiding his hands with calm patience. "You'll get it," the veteran says, his voice low and steady. "Just trust yourself." And then, with a steady strike, the spark catches. The fire begins to grow, and for the first time that day, the teenager's face lights up with something other than worry. Lena writes in her journal that evening, as the sun sets and the first night of camp draws near. The distant sounds of laughter from the group fill the air, breaking through the otherwise silent landscape. For the first time in years, the ranch feels alive with purpose, not just as a place of inheritance, but as a place of transformation. She writes, "Not a sanctuary, but a proving ground for healing." She watches as Elise quietly washes the dishes in the background, her hands moving efficiently, but with an odd sense of care. There's something humble about her now, something different. Lena doesn't know if she's ready to forgive yet, but she sees the sincerity in her actions. Maybe, in time, they could rebuild something. But that's not Lena's focus right now. Her focus is on the work, the healing, and the people standing beside her. As the firelight flickers in the center of the camp, the first night begins with shared stories and laughter. The veterans speak of their experiences, some with humor, some with quiet sorrow, but all of them are heard. The teenagers listen, wide-eyed, some already starting to bond with the veterans over shared experiences of loss and survival. Lena stands off to the side, letting the night unfold, her heart heavy with the weight of what's to come, but light with the knowledge that this is the start of something real. For all the years spent in war zones, in places where lives were lost and rebuilt, this is different. This is her legacy, and it's not about money or land. It's about people, healing, helping, and finding strength in each other. The final evening of the camp arrives quietly, but there's an energy in the air that's unmistakable. The ranch, which for so long had felt like an abandoned relic of the past, now hums with purpose. The campfire burns bright, its flames crackling in the cold evening air as veterans, teenagers, and volunteers gather around, their faces bathed in firelight. Lena stands just outside the circle, watching with a quiet sense of fulfillment. The transformation has been gradual, but now with the last night of the first trauma recovery camp drawing to a close, it's undeniable. The land is alive with meaning, not just a piece of real estate, but a place where people can rebuild, heal, and forge connections that transcend their scars. Her gaze drifts across the group, veterans swapping stories with teens, their shared experiences creating a bridge between generations. Some of the teens listen in awe, wide-eyed. Others exchange glances with the veterans, their faces lit by the flickering firelight. It's not just the stories that are healing, it's the presence of one another, the shared understanding, the simple act of being together in this space. Lena's fingers brush the worn edges of her grandfather's old pocket watch, tucked securely in her jacket pocket. She hadn't planned on wearing it tonight, but somehow it felt right to keep it close. She pulls it out, and the weight of it in her hand, cool against her palm, brings a wave of nostalgia. Her grandfather's watch, a simple timepiece with an inscription on the back. "You are my pride." She smiles softly, feeling a sense of connection to the past, to the man who built this place, not just with his hands, but with his heart. He had always been there for her, even when the world around them was uncertain. She hadn't realized until now how much she needed to hear his voice again, how much she needed his presence to guide her in this new chapter. Lena walks toward the fire, her footsteps deliberate but not rushed. As she nears the group, she feels the pull of the moment. The campfire crackles louder, the wind sweeping across the ranch, carrying with it the whispers of change. The veterans fall silent as Lena approaches. She stands at the edge of the circle, looking down at the fire and the people around it. She doesn't need to say anything yet, just the simple act of being here, of standing in the space that was once hers to inherit and now hers to steward, speaks volumes. Taking a deep breath, Lena holds up the pocket watch for everyone to see. She turns it over, letting them glimpse the inscription. Then, without a word, she places it gently on a small log near the fire, where the flames lick the edges of the glass. "This place," Lena begins, her voice steady but soft, "isn't just about ownership, it's about stewardship." She looks out at the faces around the fire, seeing the understanding in their eyes. the shared weight of what it means to truly carry something, to not just hold it for yourself, but to protect it, to care for it, for others. Lena's gaze shifts toward Elise, who sits at the edge of the circle, her face quiet but present. She's not speaking, not drawing attention to herself, but Lena sees it, the movement toward humility, toward understanding. She clears her throat slightly, then continues. This place belongs to anyone willing to carry someone else's pack for a while, to help them walk through the hardest parts of their journey, to stand with them when they're too tired to walk on their own. That's what this ranch will be, a place of rest, a place of healing. A gust of wind stirs the fire and the flames leap higher. The air is filled with the warmth of the fire, the crackle of burning wood, and the promise of something new. Lena looks out over the horizon where the last traces of daylight fade into the coming night. The stars will soon be visible above the fields, a blanket of light stretched out over the land. Her grandfather's legacy, her own, and the stories of all those who have walked this land before her, they are all part of something bigger now. Not just a family's inheritance, but a shared mission, a collective sense of purpose. In this moment, Lena feels something deep inside shift. It's not just the end of a camp, it's the beginning of something lasting, something that will outlast her, outlast the family who tried to tear it down, outlast everything but the land itself. As the fire burns low, Lena turns to the group, her eyes meeting those of the veterans and teens. We'll continue this, she says softly. We'll continue until everyone who needs it can find their way home. The wind carries the firelight across the field, sweeping the embers into the night. The chimes on the porch ring faintly in the distance. The firelight dances in Lena's eyes, and for the first time, she feels the weight of her grandfather's legacy not as a burden, but as a purpose.